Have you ever noticed people who stay calm when everything around them erupts? Not the quiet because they've shut down type. I mean the people who look insult and provocation in the face and feel nothing but steady curiosity. Carl Jung called this kind of psychological state so strange it frightened him, not because it was cold, but because it pointed to a level of freedom most humans never touch. Imagine someone insults you, and instead of the immediate burn, the racing pulse, the urge to strike back, there's a small space. In that space, you can see what's happening, like a spectator. You can ask a single question. What is this person showing me about their world and mine? That tiny habit changes the whole arc of your life. Today, we're going through Jung's discovery about this kind of emotional immunity. I'll show you the psychological map he used, the shadow mirror, the reaction gap, the boundary fortress, projection reversal, and what he called emotional alchemy. And I'll give you the practice points to start becoming less baitable and more free. This is not about pretending to be chill. It's about learning how to see triggers as information, choose your actions, and use difficulty as raw material for your growth. If you're tired of being hijacked by every text, snub, or criticism, stay with me. By the end, you'll have concrete steps you can practice starting tonight. We'll also keep an eye on the trap Jung warned about, becoming detached and superior. True psychological strength keeps you human, connected, compassionate, and unshakable. Carl Jung's fundamental insight starts with a simple observation. What annoys you in other people often points to something unintegrated inside you. He used the word shadow to name the parts we disown, impulses, fears, desires we hide from our conscious image. When those traits appear in others, they look like attacks. When we own them, they become clues. Jung wrote that until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Rather than reacting, Jung taught patients to ask, "What about this person bothers me most? And where do I show this trait?" If you practice this mini investigation honestly, a trigger changes from a pain into an X-ray, revealing previously unseen tendencies. That's the shadow mirror, other people reflecting facets of your unconscious. This isn't moralizing. The mirror doesn't say you're bad. It says, here's a part of you that's unexamined and therefore has power over you. For example, if a coworker humiliates you for being ambitious, ask where you hide ambition or how you secretly fear being ambitious. The discovery is usually surprising and smaller than you expect. Integrating that small thing, naming it, feeling it, accepting it, weakens its hold. Practice step, shadow mirror, 3 questions. 1. What exactly in this person's behavior triggers me? 2. Where have I shown this trait, even in tiny ways? 3. What would it change if I owned this part of myself? Make this a quick mental routine. Over time, you'll notice triggers stop functioning like landmines and start functioning like a curious teacher. The result is not suppressing anger. It's converting it into awareness. One of Jung's most practical discoveries was a small psychological space between stimulus and response. He noticed the people who didn't get angry had learned to cultivate that space so consistently it became their default. I'll call that space the reaction gap. When a trigger happens, most people feel an automatic chain. Stimulus arrow, immediate emotion arrow, reactive behavior. The technique Jung used, which I'll summarize as the observer protocol, teaches you to pause and watch the chain as though it were a movie. You don't merge with the emotion. You note it. 3-step observer protocol, repeatable. 1. Pause and breathe. Even a single conscious breath will widen the gap. 2. Observe what's happening. The other person's words, body language, tone. And then, more importantly, observe your internal state. Notice sensations, thoughts, images without identifying with them. 3. Choose from values. Ask, what is the action that aligns with who I want to be, not the immediate pull of the moment? Why this works? Labeling and observing an emotion down regulates it. Physiology follows attention. You are the consciousness that notices, not the emotion itself. Jung stressed this capacity to become conscious of unconscious processes as the center of psychological change. Micro exercises daily. Practice the pause in low-stakes moments. When an ad annoys you, when a driver cuts you off, pause, breathe, observe. Set 3 pre-decided responses to frequent triggers. I'll ask for clarification. I'll wait to respond. I'll walk away. Pre-deciding removes drama. Use the observer protocol until reactions change their rhythm. You'll be surprised how quickly a few consistent breaths and a watchful mind reduce reactivity. Jung noticed the emotionally impermeable people weren't absorbing everything. They'd built boundaries that were skillful, not defensive. Think of a fortress with gates, not a wall that isolates. The fortress protects your center, but still allows what's useful in. 3 practical boundary structures. 1. Relevance filter. Decide what information you'll internalize. Not every opinion is about you. Ask, is this information useful for my growth or goals? If not, acknowledge it and let it pass. 2. Ownership boundary. clearly separate your emotions from others. If someone is furious, you can note, this is their anger. It belongs to them. You can listen without absorbing. 3. Identity anchor. Maintain a stable sense of self rooted in your values and long-term aims, not in the moment's feedback. An identity anchored in competence, curiosity, or care is harder to shake. How to build these boundaries. Morning anchor ritual. 2 minutes. Pick 3 words that describe who you are becoming, e.g., steady, curious, kind. Say them aloud. This creates an identity anchor for the day. Relevance checklist. Before mentally internalizing a comment, is this helpful? Is this accurate? Is this mine to carry? If no, don't carry it. Ownership practice. In conversation, practice the phrase mentally. I hear you. I'm not taking that into my chest right now. Boundaries are not armor, they are selective permeability. Jung's patients learned to receive other people's emotions as data instead of nutrients. They could process what helps and leave the rest at the gate. The paradox: the more skillful your boundaries, often the more others test them, because strong boundaries reveal other people's emotional dependencies. That's expected. It's part of recalibration. Projection is when someone's internal conflict is seen in you. Jung taught that in most personal attacks, the attacker is projecting their own wound onto you. The technique projection reversal trains you to reverse engineer the attack to find the attacker's pain. That doesn't excuse cruelty. It just changes how you perceive it. 3 diagnostic questions. 1. What quality is the attacker most loudly accusing me of? 2. Where does that quality appear in their life? Look for clues. 3. What personal pain or insecurity might be driving this attack? When you can answer these honestly, attacks stop landing as judgments and start landing as signals. That opens the door to compassion instead of combustion. Practical edge: use projection reversal in private, not publicly shaming. If a colleague is harsh, ask those 3 questions privately. It will change how you respond aloud, from defensive to curious. You may respond by naming the concrete problem. I hear you're worried about X. Let's solve X, which disarms projection. A big danger: too much projection reading can distance you from others. If every person becomes a wounded child, you may drift into superiority or indifference. Jung's remedy: stay close to the experience. Feel compassion, not contempt. The end aim is to be both unbothered and connected. The compassionate warrior. Jung loved alchemy, not for turning lead into gold, but for the symbolic map of transformation. He and later Jungian writers used alchemical language to describe psychological transformation. Hard inputs, shame, anger, betrayal, becoming useful output, wisdom, resilience. That's emotional alchemy. 3-step alchemy process. 1. Trigger mining. When disturbed, ask, what specific lesson is here? Be practical. Name it. 2. Shadow integration. Identify the small shadow trait the situation spotlighted and make a plan to integrate it. Journal. Entry. Small behavior change. 3. Strength synthesis. Practice the opposite skill until the shadow trait's force is neutralized and becomes a competence. Example of the process in micro form. You're triggered by a coworker's laziness. Trigger mining. You notice you expect others to share your urgency. Shadow integration. You explore whether you avoid inspiring people or whether you resent having to lead. Strength synthesis. Practice connection-based motivation. 1 short conversation a day where you ask teammates about their goals. Alchemy is not a feel-good trick. It's disciplined and often tedious work. A list of habits and reflection practices that convert pain into personal capital. Jung's symbolic language for transformation, the Ouroboros and the alchemical process, maps precisely onto this method of iterative growth. Learning these skills invites a risky temptation, using emotional immunity as power to dominate or detach. Jung warned that psychological insight without compassion can lead to clinical superiority, seeing everyone as a specimen rather than a human. Common pitfalls. Emotional superiority, thinking you're above others because you don't react. Cure. Practice humility by teaching, not judging. Offer your calm as a gift. Isolation. If you stop engaging with others' drama entirely, relationships calcify. Cure. Intentionally enter 1 emotional conversation per week without trying to fix. Just listen. Overuse of projection reading, turning curiosity into constant diagnosis. Cure. Limit projection reversal to situations that matter and pair it with empathy. Health checks. If you find yourself chronically amused at others' pain, do a 2-week empathy audit. Daily reflect on 1 moment where you listened without analysis. If you can't find one, you're drifting. True psychological immunity, Jung suggested, ends in service. You don't use immunity as a wall. You use it as a bridge. The compassionate warrior holds space, unbothered inside, present outside. That is the balancing act. If you want to move from curious ideas to lived skill, do this structured program. It's simple, repeatable, and scalable. Week 1. Awareness. Shadow mirror. Practice 5 times per day. When triggered, run the 3 shadow questions in under a minute. Journal. 1. Insight nightly. Week 2. Reaction. Gap training. Practice the observer protocol. Use the single breath pause in 10 low-stakes moments daily. Week 3. Boundaries. Build a morning anchor, 3 words, and rehearse 3 pre-decided responses to frequent triggers. Week 4. Projection reversal. When attacked, privately run the 3 diagnostic questions and write a neutral summary, what they reveal about the attacker. Week 5. Alchemy. Micro habits. For the top 2 recurring triggers, choose one skill you will practice for 10 minutes daily that addresses the hidden weakness, e.g., patience practice, assertive speaking, curiosity prompts. Week 6. Integration and compassion. For 1 emotional conversation per week, enter without diagnosis. Listen, reflect feeling. Offer 1 small, helpful idea. Review journal. What changed? Daily micro routine, 10 to 15 minutes. Watch the 2-minute morning news. 5-minute reflective journaling on 1 trigger. 3 slow breaths in at least 5 moments throughout the day. Small, consistent practice is the alchemy. Jung's work wasn't about revelation in a moment. It was a practice of making the unconscious conscious day by day. Jung discovered something that looked terrifying at first glance. People who don't get angry aren't robots. They are humans who learned to transform the emotional world into a cleaner, more useful map of themselves. That map is composed of the shadow mirror, the reaction gap, a carefully built boundary fortress, projection reversal, and emotional alchemy, all aimed at 1 practical goal: freedom from automatic reactivity. You don't have to become perfect. The point is to practice the tiny moments of choice. Pause. Notice. Ask the 3 questions. Use your triggers like a laboratory. In that laboratory, you will find the parts of you that, once attended, stop pulling the strings. As Jung taught, make the unconscious conscious. That simple ethic changes everything. See triggers as teachers. Build boundaries that let in what helps and keep out what drains. Turn pain into fodder for growth. And above all, keep your humanity. Offer your calm to others as a place to land, not a place to judge. If you want the downloadable journaling template, the pre-written 3-question card, and the 6-week habit checklist, grab the link in the description and subscribe. Start tonight with a single breath and 1 honest question about the last time you felt triggered. That tiny habit is the beginning of emotional immunity. Thank you for watching. If this journey resonated, share what you learned, what you'll practice. Let's walk this path together toward psychological immunity, inner freedom, and strength with compassion.